Welcome back to channel, where we delve into the complexities of relationships and the bonds that tie us together. Today's story is one that will shake you to your core. It's titled Caught Cheating, Husband Hires Private Investigator, Shocking Footage Revealed. Get ready to experience a tale of trust shattered and the pursuit of truth as we uncover the secrets that threaten to tear a marriage apart. Tell something was up, but I didn't press. She said she was tired. So I went with it over the next few days. I started noticing that she was on her phone quite a bit, even around dinner time. I would ask, why is she texting a lot these days? And she would tell me that she was in a group chat, talking with her girlfriends about the girls' night out they had and planning another one. I didn't think much of it at the time. She was constantly texting her girlfriends. It was nothing new, but looking back now, I realized she was probably planning something with them that she didn't want me to know about. My wife works as a consultant for a big firm and would always come home stressed. So I didn't mind her having a night out with her girlfriends every so often. But now she is talking about another girls' night out. This will be the second girls' night out coming up in less than 3 weeks. The bad thing is, these women she hangs out with, 4 of them are all single. She is the only married one of the bunch, which in my opinion is not a good thing because it means she is the only one with something to lose. The other women are footloose and fancy-free. I don't want my wife to be a cheater, but I also don't want to control her or tell her what she can and cannot do. So, her second girls' night out came and went. I told her the next day that she needed to be careful and make sure her single friends didn't cause her to fuck up her marriage. She looked at me funny, but didn't say anything. After work one day, I stopped by my parents' house and talked to them about my frustration with my wife participating in these frequent girls' night out parties. I told my mom that the women she hangs out with are all single and none of them have anything to lose. My mom looked at me and said, "Well, I don't see anything wrong with a girls' night out, but I do see a problem with a girls' night out with only single women." My mom said she is playing with fire. Then my dad chimed in and said, "Yeah, if I were you, I would put my foot down and tell her that's enough." He also said the fact that she keeps going out to party without you is a major cause for concern. Then my mom jumped in again and said she did a girls' night out with her friends. 3 times in the 40 years my parents have been married, but my mom's girlfriends were all married. Mom said they were home by 11 p.m. They didn't stay out later than that. I thought about what they said on my way home and I decided they were right. I needed to nip this in the bud before it got out of hand. When I got home, I talked to my wife about it and she got angry, saying I was being controlling and didn't trust her. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to control her. I just wanted her to be careful because I loved her. She didn't want to hear it and went to bed angry. The next day she left for her girls' night out. She didn't even come home from work. This was her 3rd girls' night out. I did not even know about this one. My wife didn't get home until after 2 in the morning. I didn't say anything. I just waited up for her. I pretended to be asleep. When she entered the bedroom, I decided I needed to find out what was going on and why she wanted to leave her family and party with her girlfriends on the way to work the next day. I called a friend of mine and asked him, did he still have the contact information for the private investigator he used for his company? A little backstory. My friend had an employee who was trying to get workman's comp for having an accident on the job. His employee was complaining after the accident that he couldn't come to work. So my friend promptly hired a private investigator. Turns out he wasn't injured at all. He was playing golf, played in a flag football league. Needless to say, he dropped the workman's comp claim. My friend gave me the number of the private investigator he used. He then asked me, was everything okay? I told him I wasn't sure. And I indicated that I think my wife is doing something she wasn't supposed to be doing. I said, she has been going out and doing these so-called girls' night out parties. My friend then asked me what made me think my wife was cheating. I told him about the 3 times she had gone out recently and stayed out until after midnight, coming home, smelling of alcohol. I also told him that when I confronted her about it, she got angry and defensive. He then said to me, well, it sounds like you have enough. I called the private investigator and set up an appointment to meet him after work. I met the private investigator and he asked me what I wanted him to do. I told him I wanted him to follow my wife and see what she was doing when she went out on her so-called girls' night out. The private investigator told me his fee was $100 per hour. And I said, I didn't care. I just wanted to know what my wife was doing. I gave the private investigator a picture of my wife. I told him what kind of car she drove, where she worked and what hours she worked. The private investigator told me he would start following my wife the next day. I waited impatiently for the private investigator to call me and tell me what my wife was doing. Finally, after 3 days, he called me. The private investigator told me to meet him after work. He had some footage to show me. He showed me footage of my wife leaving work in different clothes that day. On that day, she didn't leave for work in those clothes. She changed at work. He followed her to a bar. He went in and noticed she went to a table with a bunch of women, which were her girlfriends. They were there for about 2 hours. Then they all left. He followed them to a house about 15 minutes from the bar. He noticed a guy answered the door and they all went in. The private investigator was dressed in black. He tells me that at night, it helps him get closer for his surveillance. He walked up to a window at a slight distance and noticed all the girls were dancing, grinding on a few guys. And my wife was in the corner with some guy. He was squeezing her butt and she was kissing him. After that, he looked at me and told me, I think you have enough to do what you need to do. He handed me this flash drive and he told me he will keep a copy just as a precaution. After meeting with the private investigator, I went home and cried. I couldn't believe my wife of 9 years had cheated on me and she was still doing it. I wanted to confront her, but I didn't want to show her the footage. The next day I got up and left for work without saying anything to my wife. She sent me a text on the way to work, asking why I didn't say anything to her. When I left, I did not respond to the text. When I got to work, I made it a point to call a few divorce lawyers to see what I was dealing with and how I could protect myself. I also started looking for a place to stay because I knew there was no way I could stay in the house with my wife. I will miss the boys, but their mother did this. I was absolutely devastated. My whole world had been turned upside down and I didn't know how to fix it. The only solution was divorce. I wasn't going to try and fix our marriage. She wants this single life. She can have it. I had to be strategic because I didn't want the boys to be alone while their mother went out on her girls' night out. I live in Massachusetts, which is a no-fault state, that much I know. So divorce should be pretty easy. When I got home that night, my wife was home sitting on the couch with the boys. I walked in and she asked how my day was. And the boys smiled at me and said, "Hey Dad," I wanted to cry, but I had to hold it in. A few hours go by and everyone is winding down. My wife puts the boys to bed and comes downstairs and asks me if I want to watch a movie with her. I said, "No, I don't think so." She then said, "Okay, I'm going to bed." I waited until she was in bed to go upstairs and get my stuff and leave. I waited until she fell asleep before I left the house. I didn't have anywhere to go yet. So I went to my parents. It was late. My dad was worried and asked me, was I okay? I told him I had something to show him. We sat down at the dining room table. I pulled up the footage that my private investigator compiled and showed my dad what the private investigator found. And my dad was in disbelief. My mom came downstairs and I showed her too. They were both speechless. I told them I was moving out and getting a divorce. They didn't say anything to try and stop me. I'm sure they were disappointed, but what could they say? My wife had cheated on me and I was done. I stayed at my parents' house that night. The next morning I got up, I sent my boss a text and told him that I would be coming in late. I was honest with him and he didn't have a problem with it. After talking to my boss, I noticed my wife had sent me hundreds of text messages, wondering where I was and why I left last night. I didn't respond to any of them. I found an attorney and filed for divorce based on the grounds of adultery. And I moved out of the house. I went back to the house when I knew my wife wouldn't be there. And I left a note on the kitchen counter. I told her that I had filed for divorce and that she could find me at my parents' house if she needed anything. After work, I drove to my parents' house and I saw my wife's car parked in the driveway. I went inside and I saw my wife sitting at the kitchen table crying. She asked me why I filed for divorce and I slowly pulled out my phone and showed her the footage and told her that I did not deserve this. I didn't deserve the way you were treating me. We sat and talked for a while and we both decided it would be best if we divorced. I told her I didn't want the house. We were renting it anyway, so she could have it. She makes enough money to pay for it. At the divorce hearing, it was amicable. The judge gave me 30 days to get the rest of my things. I didn't go after her for alimony. I made more than her and I didn't have to pay child support. She was getting that from the kid's father already. We are both the same age, 33, and the boys are 7 and 8. It was heartbreaking because I loved those boys like they were my own and I was their father in every way, but biologically. My job offered me a position out of state and I took it, changed my phone number. Only my parents and a few friends have my new number and started a new life. It's been almost a year now and I'm doing well. I've started dating again and I'm in a much better place emotionally. My friends have told me that my ex-wife was asking about me and she even tried to reach out to me on social media. But I have no desire to speak to her or see her again. I'm glad I made the decision to move on with my life. And I hope you can do the same if you're in a similar situation. Thanks for reading. I have never shared anything about my life on these forums, but this was heartbreaking for me. I still struggle at times, but one day at a time is how I am dealing with it. Thank you for joining us for this emotional journey. If you've been moved by today's story or have your own experiences to share, please leave a comment below. And remember, no matter how difficult the truth may be, it's always better to face it with courage and integrity. Stay tuned for more heartfelt stories on Heartstring. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, I have an incredibly shocking and nerve-wracking story for you. It's about trust, betrayal, and the lengths one man went to uncover the truth. Imagine discovering that the person you love most in the world might be hiding something so devastating that it could destroy your entire life together. Well, that's exactly what happened in today's story. So, sit back, relax, and prepare yourself for I caught my wife's affair with the butler and it got worse when I fired him. 10 years into our marriage, I became very wealthy thanks to the percentage of ownership I had in my father's company. So, I bought my loyal and lovely wife a mansion for us to live in, which came with a butler who was prepared to take care of all the undesirable chores. My work schedule was pretty spontaneous because I could visit the office as I pleased or work from home. Our marriage and life together for the next 20 years after that were blissful other than some odd moments and occurrences. One day, I arrived home from work to find the butler with my wife, standing side by side doing dishes. She was drying, the easier part, but I didn't understand why she was willingly doing any of the chores and standing so close to him. Their elbows touched a few times, and I coughed to let them know I was there. My wife jumped, but he just moved away from her a little bit. She said she felt bad he was in here all by himself, so she wanted to keep him company and help a bit. She was so cheery and warm, I couldn't tell if she had any ill intentions. Another time, I came home to find her lounging in the pool with the butler gardening and staring at her. They laughed a few times before I came out to greet them. It was clear that they were at least friends, but I didn't like how friendly they were. I thought I was just being controlling and jealous, so I accepted that my wife was friends with and cared about the butler. What was the harm in that if I trusted my wife of 17-ish years at this point? We spent every moment I wasn't busy together. I loved her, and I could tell she loved me. Yet another odd occurrence was when I walked upstairs to find the butler closing our bedroom door. It had been hours since I was upstairs because my wife was still sleeping. It was odd, and I asked him if she called for him. He jumped when I spoke and turned around sheepishly, although I could tell he wanted to act normal. He stammered and said she called to ask him for some water. I accepted that for a moment, but reminded him that he was not to enter our bedroom or open the door. He didn't know what to say besides, "Yes, sir." He walked away quickly, and I opened the door to find my wife in her panties drinking water. I asked her if the butler saw her like that, and she said no, she just took off her robe again. I was skeptical. I was heavily considering hiring a new butler. It seemed like she was flirty with him, at least, and I didn't like that he was most likely in our bedroom with my wife in her panties. Before I could terminate him, I saw him smelling my wife's panties. I know, it's really bad, really ballsy. I caught him on the security camera. I told him that was unacceptable and made my wife really uncomfortable. I didn't even tell her about it, but when I told him she was uncomfortable, he instantly looked like he didn't believe me. That ticked me off. I told him he was fired. I hired someone else, this time a female maid since I knew my wife was straight. I decided that even if I was jealous and protective, it was a smart decision. 1 week later, I arrived home to find the maid outside gardening. I went upstairs and found the butler I fired coming out of our bedroom once again, except this time he was dressed in regular, but still kind of formal, clothes. He looked at me like he was amused, but inconvenienced because I was there and saw him. I asked him what he was doing in my house again, and he told me my wife hired him for something else. He said it with such nerve, all I wanted to do was punch his smug face. I told him to leave and not to come back, no matter what my wife told him. As he walked away, I went into the bedroom and found my wife wearing a skimpy little nightgown. I asked her what was happening, and she looked nervous. She said I was home earlier today than the week before, and I told her she always knew my schedule was spontaneous and not to change the subject. She turned red and told me I was freaking out over nothing. I asked her why she couldn't explain why she was here in her skimpy nightgown after the butler I fired just came out of the room. She was pretty stunned and said she hired him back for things around the house the maid couldn't handle. I asked if one of those things was helping her with her personal plumbing and lubrication. Her jaw dropped, and she couldn't look me in the eye. Her cheeks must have been burning, they were so red. It looked like blood vessels in her face were showing up. It was crazy. Her face never turned that red in all the 30 years we were together. She finally said in a weak voice that if he did help her with that, it was nothing against me. I told her that it most definitely was against me because she belonged to me. We were life partners, and only I was permitted to help her with her plumbing and lubrication. She said she wouldn't ask him to help her again, and asked me not to worry about it anymore. I asked if that meant she was admitting to sleeping with him, and she was silent. She nodded yes very minimally, with her eyes watering. Then she started speaking really fast about how it didn't matter, she just considered it a job, nothing meaningful that would take away from our marriage, and she needed me to forget about it so that nothing changed between us. I told her this was most certainly going to change things between us, and it already took everything away from our marriage. I told her we were over, called her a name, and told her to get out of my home. I was extremely careful to get a post-nup signed after I came into more money. It's not that I didn't trust my wife at the time, it was because my father and I were lawyers, which means I couldn't ever be made the fool. So my wife sorrowfully packed her bags. She had too many bags for someone with nowhere to go. The butler came to pick her up in the car he afforded with the paychecks I gave him. They stayed in a motel where the butler had been staying after I fired him. My wife had so many belongings, clothes, that she had to leave some of it behind, which I immediately told the maid to sell on eBay, or keep for herself. They stayed in that motel as long as they could, but their money ran out without me signing the checks. They tried to contact me, individually, blaming each other for what occurred and asking me to take them back into the mansion. It was gratifying that they were turning on each other and failing to survive or do anything with their lives. Even to this day, my ex still tries to ask me for help and gives me some updated sob stories about where she is in life. It is not glamorous, it's far from what she was accustomed to with me. I've become something like Bruce Wayne in town, and I have no complaints. Even though her betrayal hurt, I knew from the moment I found out that I could recover from it. Not because of my money, but because I know what love is. And it wasn't that. OP, I am sorry your wife couldn't see what a great life she had with you. I honestly feel like the attention and sexual tension she experienced with the butler was too much for her immature brain to handle. It was a man in close proximity to her that she shouldn't sleep with, no matter how much he would have been willing. He obviously paid her attention, and when their friendship developed, she couldn't keep her legs closed. I believe she was egotistical and materialistic, and didn't have the respect she should for her providing and loyal husband. What this type of woman needs to understand is that resisting temptation pays off in the end. No man should be able to convince them to disrespect themselves and their spouses by breaking their vows and trust. I'm not sure what happened in your wife's head, but we are all here for you to offer support. Now let's get into our second story for today. One fateful day, when my wife went to work, she forgot her phone. I took the opportunity to check it and was appalled by what I found. I should have known what was going on, because my wife, 25, was extremely excited about going to work suddenly. She said it was because she became in charge of a business task that she really enjoyed. It was something like designing different abstract images each day for a newsletter. I, 28, believed her. She was a good girl, and I was proud of her for earning us additional income for living expenses. The only other dead giveaway was that she didn't want to have sex as often, but then I knew why. It was because she was sexting with a coworker, sending pictures, and talking about the sex they had. It was disgusting. I drove to her work immediately. I backed up all the stuff for her phone, because although she wasn't getting it back, it was going to be deactivated. I brought it with me, and started by showing the receptionist, who I only met once before. Then I asked her if I could get a guest pass to go have lunch with my wife. She giggled and gave me one. She knew I was sarcastically infuriated, and this was going to be a heck of a show. She followed me in, putting up a "be back in 5 minutes" sign that she scribbled out. Everyone looked up from their desks to see me. I must have looked determined and angry. I asked everyone to gather around, and they did. I said I had some news to share about somewhere they all knew well. They were all sparkly-eyed with gossip endorphins when they found out who I was talking about. People started looking around for AP and my wife. AP came out of the bathroom just then, and we all looked at him. I announced that there was a guy who had the audacity to sleep with my wife. Some of the co-workers started shouting out insults at him. Among these, he was called despicable. Just then, my wife's head peeked out of her office. When she saw everyone looking at her, she went back inside and shut the door. Now everyone knew what my wife and AP looked like naked. Some girls whispered that they knew something was going on between them. Coworkers took the time to print/draw signs that said slanderous insults and taped them on my wife's office door. I thanked them for their creativity and left, wondering where the boss was that allowed all this to happen. When my wife got back to the house, I already had the locks changed. She took the stuff I let her have to AP's house. They both quit their jobs that day and walked out shamefully. In our town, there was just one major employer for like half the population. So when I shared with people the things my wife talked about and took pictures of, everyone in the area knew about it or saw it. It didn't take long for them to decide to move about 500 miles west. I couldn't have asked for a better outcome. Since she moved out of state, our divorce was made final through the mail. She didn't ask me for anything, thank God, but I would have been able to prove her infidelity anyway. She was done with me and the embarrassing past she was trying to forget. I felt the same way about her and couldn't be happier with the choice I made. OP, I am sorry your wife behaved like an untrustworthy office cheater. It's hard to get as low as a person who cheats on their spouse while utilizing their trust to earn income for the family. What are they even working for if not to improve the life they have at home? If they honestly believe the person they start an affair with at work or anywhere is better than the spouse they have at home, they're wrong. The grass may seem greener on the other side. Finding a person with a new set of features, issues, habits, goals, and interests is completely unnecessary. It is only a shame when a marriage or union ends because one spouse thought they found better in someone else or just thought they could effortlessly manage two serious relationships. Really, the only grounds for divorce, the proper way to end a marriage, is when one person absolutely cannot or will not honestly communicate with the other person. Thank you for sharing this story. I appreciate your bravery and bold confrontation. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Take care. If this story touched your heart, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with others who might need to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more unforgettable. Welcome back to the channel, dear viewers. Tonight, we delve into a tale that uncovers deep family secrets and sparks a heated conflict. The story is titled "I Discovered My Stepdad Abandoned His Kids and Kept It Secret for Years, Now My Family is in Chaos." Join me as we unravel the events that turned a seemingly perfect family life upside down. So, sit back, relax, and let's dive into this shocking story. I moved an hour away, started a job over the summer, and became close with a few coworkers. One of them and I have become actual friends outside of the office, and she's integrated me into her friend circle. After getting to know her backstory, Mom was abandoned while pregnant and had to raise 3 kids. We got close, and I consider her a good friend now. She's so sweet and nice. Last weekend, I was over at her mom's house getting ready to go out, and was looking at some pictures on her wall, and I saw one of her younger brothers and a man, and did a double take. He looks exactly like my stepfather, but younger. I tried to find another he was in, but that was it. She saw me staring at it and said that's her father, and I laughed and said he looks like my stepdad. She asked me his name, and I said it, and the color of her face left. She started calling her mom to come to the room, and the next 10 minutes consisted of me awkwardly answering their questions. Turns out my stepdad is her father. I met him when I was 6, so my friend would have been 8, and that's the time he left. He never mentioned having any kids, so it was shocking. It was horrible to hear them cry, and we never went out. I told them that he has a successful business, and maybe they could get money for back child support, but they said they didn't want anything from him. I went home this week, and things have just been awkward. My stepdad is so nice, and literally my only father figure, so to know he abandoned his biological kid is crazy. My stepdad just kept asking me why I'm acting weird, and I didn't say anything at first. My mom pulled me aside, and I told her everything. To my surprise, she didn't react. She said how he lives his life is his business, and I shouldn't judge him. This is coming from a former single mother. I remember her crying over my dad leaving us, and I was disgusted by what she said, so I told her loudly not to speak to me, and she's a hypocrite and stormed out of the house. My stepdad followed me to my car, saying that I needed to come back and apologize to my mom right now, and I told him to go and apologize to the kids he abandoned and listed their names. I told him to take care of his actual children. He looked like he would faint and went back inside the house. My mom has been sending me texts that I need to apologize to my stepdad for being an idiot to him and making him cry for days, and that he raised me and took care of me, and that I shouldn't forget that, and that if he didn't do what he did, I would be the one without a dad and to be grateful. I haven't replied back. Am I really the idiot? You need to apologize? Wow, the goal! You've discovered that your stepfather is not who you thought he was. He and your mom told you a massive lie of omission for your entire life. He and your mom walked away from innocent children he was legally and morally responsible for. The fact that he raised you and cared for you has very little bearing on this new information you've discovered. It's okay to be appalled and take time to process the shock, and for God's sake, you don't need to be the one apologizing, and you are not the idiot. Am I the only one who thinks her mom might have been the other woman who he left his family for? The timing seems suspect, plus her lack of reaction says a lot. Oof! It should go without saying that any parent who abandons their parental responsibilities is an idiot, but your mom? Oh boy, let's just say that if you ever find yourself on a lifeboat with limited food and water, make sure to sit outside pushing distance. Stepdad came into OP's life when she was 6. Her friend would have been 8 then, and that's when he left their family, so it adds up. I mean, it could have been a random chance that they met quickly after, but his willingness to jump into stepdadhood after abandoning his children so wholly also makes me feel like your theory's correct. If OP wants to know the truth, she may want to start with her friend's mom. I cannot imagine her mom or stepdad ever admitting that OP's mom knew, was in on it, or was the other woman. Wow. OP's mom is a cruel, cold woman. How awful to find out that both people who raised you are so selfish. I would hope that her friend would understand that OP isn't the bad guy here, but it may be hard for them to be around the person their father raised when he didn't stick around to raise them. For me personally, if I was the abandoned child, it would be too hard. Like, I couldn't imagine hearing stories about OP doing things with my father that he should have done with me. Update, I talked to mom and stepdad. They're saying the past is none of my business, and that even if it was, screaming to him to take care of his kids isn't the way to go about it, and that I only care about my feelings and no one else, which makes me wrong in this situation. My mom is saying my stepdad didn't do anything wrong to me, so he has nothing to apologize to me about, and I need to make a sincere apology soon. She's saying that I told him about the kids in the worst way possible, and I only said it to hurt him, so it makes me no better than him, and even worse. I'm planning a wedding and deciding everything regarding the guest list. Given the venue's small size, we have a hard cap of people allowed. We can only have 105 people. Anything after that would not be allowed due to fire codes and venue policy. I have an older sister, Mia, whose life is a bit of a mess. She and her latest ex-partner, and the dad of one of her kids, broke up in the last 6 months. She has 4 kids, who are all living at my parents' house for now. We opted not to have a child-free wedding, after there was so much drama about it. Mia's 4 kids, preschoolers to tween, will be at our wedding. She recently got an invite stating her name and her 4 kids' names. She then called me and said, I assume as an adult, I also get a +1. We told her no. She's not in a serious relationship, and she and her kids are already about 5% of our total guest list. Our caterer also doesn't charge less for kids, so we're paying about $400 for those 4 kids to be there. We don't want to pay another $100 for some random that she'd bring. She's not dating anyone, but she said she could easily find a date or bring a friend to have someone to dance with. We told her she has 4 kids there, which should be more than enough, instead of having a +1. My dad is on my side and is tired of her taking up their house. My mom is a little more sympathetic and says I should allow her to have a +1 because that's what you do for adults. Spending $600 on just my sister, her kids, and a date, when she's not seeing anyone seriously, seems ridiculous. She's pretty ticked off though. Am I being the idiot here? Not the idiot. I think you're being very generous in allowing her 4 children to attend, and she had the nerve to ask for an additional person? Wow, she's a bit of a choosy beggar, isn't she? It's your wedding and your money. If she wants to bring a +1, then let her pay the $100 it's going to be to feed that person. If your mom is all for it, then she can pay for your sister to have a +1. It's really cute that she wants to wine and dine someone at your expense, a person you've never met, and that she's not in a relationship. The wedding and reception are about the married couple after all. Who does she expect to babysit her children while she's dancing anyway? Are other people going to have to forego the dancing and babysit so she can have a good time? She can hire a babysitter and leave the kids at home and get a +1. Or she can bring her kids and no +1. Let her choose. You win either way. She's broke, so there are no babysitters, and I'm not even expecting to get a gift from her. She didn't get a gift from my other sibling last year because money was too tight. I honestly don't care about the gift thing, but I'm already paying roughly $500 for her and her family, and an extra $100 just feels unreasonable given she's already bringing 4 extra guests. My partner and I are paying for the entire wedding ourselves. Then that's your answer. No means no, and you shouldn't have to justify it to anyone. It's your wedding and your money. Don't let anyone bully you into doing something you don't want to do. Your sister will be fine without a +5. My brother has 2 kids, ages young teen and tween, with his ex. They were high school sweethearts who had kids young, never married, and split when the kids were still little. They mostly always shared custody of the kids, but for about 8 months in 2017, the kids were primarily with my brother because his ex was homeless. She got herself together again, and she got married in 2020. Her husband has 3 or maybe 4 kids, and ever since she remarried, she's been asking my brother to include her stepkids in stuff that he does with my niece and nephew, like when he took them to Disney or when he took them to the aquarium, etc. My brother has always told her no and ignored her attempts to get him more involved. The kids don't like their step-siblings very much or their mom's husband when they do see him. It sounds like he's mostly absent, so they've never wanted them included in time with their dad. Lately, she's decided that since my brother isn't giving in, she'd focus on me and ask me to do these things with the kids. My husband, kids, and I often do things with my brother and the kids. She knows this. She asked me in person a couple of times if I'd like to bring her stepkids along with us or watch out for them. I told her no. I told my brother. He told her to knock it off. Then a couple of weeks ago, my nephew came to me and said his mom wanted him and his sister to ask me to bring the stepkids along to a water park trip we had planned for May. He said they didn't want them to come, but his mom would be up his butt about it if he didn't ask. He said she wouldn't accept it when they told her I wouldn't say yes. So, I told him I would speak to his mom. So, I called her and she started as though I had already said yes. I told her I was calling to say no and stop asking. She told me I should give it a shot and that the kids are missing out and how great it would be for my niece and nephew. She said she'd have them ready and introduce us better before the weekend so the kids and I know each other. She said it would give the kids time to do stuff with their siblings. I told her that she needs to quit trying to pawn her stepkids off of my brother and me because she's been told no each time and it's getting closer to harassment and it's unfair to drag the kids in the middle. She told me she was looking out for her stepkids and I'm a nasty witch. My brother is so tired of her, but he can't do anything other than ignore her request. He's tried, but she doesn't want to listen. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. So, she expects others to do her parenting, give her a break from her parenting, and pay for strangers' kids. Just because she said so? But she had a good reason from her perspective, so others should put up with it? The level of egocentrism is off the charts. This woman clearly does not want children, so why does she have some? And why did she marry a man with kids? Be prepared for the ding-dong ditch my kids approach of leaving them on your doorstep and driving off. When that happens, let her know in no uncertain terms. You will call the cops for child abandonment. A Ring camera might be a good idea, too. It sounds exhausting, but you're doing the right thing by holding firm on your boundaries. I can understand that it's hard for the mom to see her family not get along, but she chose to marry someone with children that her existing children don't seem to like. The best thing she can do would be to stop forcing everyone to be one big happy family and just give her kids space to come around on their own terms. My husband, 51, and I, 48, female, have 6 children. Our teen, Gianna, is a junior in high school and our son, Riker, is in 7th grade. The kids are starting to have their school dances. The 7th grade dance is later this month and the junior banquet is in early May. We've gone shopping for dress clothes for all the dances. We bought Gianna's dress a few weeks ago. Gianna has usually been a good kid throughout her life. This school year has been slightly harder than others, though. Around 2 months ago, we got a call from Gianna's choir teacher saying that Gianna and a few other altos were making insulting jokes about some of the new pieces she introduced, including an Urdu song and a song from the Honduras. We talked to Gianna about her actions, and we made her write an apology to her teacher and write a 5-paragraph essay on why it's important to respect music from other cultures. Riker has a friend from his baseball team who is Honduran. He was born here, but his mom was born in Honduras, and his dad is mixed. When Riker heard about this, he was quite mad, and he asked if he could have his friend come over and teach her about the culture there. We allowed this, and he came over with his parents, and they made food, and Riker and his friend talked about sports and music there. Gianna was very clearly not enjoying it, but we made her engage anyways. Our daughter and a group of her friends, including her boyfriend, got in trouble last week for making the same jokes again. We took her phone to investigate where this hatred could come from. Riker had his friends over for a sleepover the night we found out about this. During dinner, the boys were talking about how their coach would never let them live through it if they bullied a kid or made that kind of joke. My husband and I tried helping guide them through their feelings, like asking them about the diverse athletes they liked. Gianna was hanging out with friends at the mall that night, some of whom were doing dress shopping for the upcoming dance. Unfortunately, our son and the boys decided to use this as an opportunity to trash the dress, using mud, drinks, and cutting a few holes in the dress. We found out when Gianna came home, entered her room, and saw the dress. The boys were laughing, and Riker said they did it because Gianna didn't deserve to go to the banquet, saying how there could be kids that looked like his Honduran friend. We told Riker we were trying our best to educate her in a very white town. We're all so white. We told him that this was the wrong way to take out his anger, and that as a result, he couldn't go to a 7th grade dance. Riker told us to shut up and spent the rest of his night in his room with the boys. Riker texted my parents and siblings, as well as my in-laws, and a few have called us and come to his defense, saying he's just a kid who was trying to cope with anger. So, now we're unsure if we are in the wrong. Am I the idiot? Edit. We haven't decided if Gianna's allowed to her dance yet, but she's already had her phone taken away as a punishment, though. You are the idiot. I don't understand how destroying a dress comes with a bigger punishment than getting in trouble for the same crime twice. What he did was wrong, but the fact that your daughter's still getting to go to her dance and out with the friends also seems like the wrong response, so I can understand why he's angry. Yeah, like is the daughter some golden child or what? Maybe the son sees the lack of true punishment or consequences as her getting away with it and is understandably angry about it. OP really messed up here, and their half-baked solution is only going to make things worse. I agree, an appropriate punishment would be making him pay back the cost of the dress or a new one, but I honestly wouldn't punish him. I'd explain how what he did was wrong, but you're proud of him for sticking up for his friends against his awful sister. And you are the idiot for even allowing your daughter to still go to the dance. Obviously, whatever you're doing with your daughter isn't changing her mind. Maybe take a look at yourself and how you contributed to raising a brat. My parents are having people from their home country come for a visit. They told me that for the 4 weeks that the guests were here, I was to vacate my room and sleep in the basement on an inflatable mattress. I, female 26, have only been living with them because they insist. I have a job and have been working and saving money since I was 16. I didn't need their help to pay for college, and I paid them rent for my room, as well as buy groceries and help out around the house. I told them that if they wanted a guest room, then I could move out. Several condo developments in my area have units ready for immediate possession, and I have almost enough to buy one outright. I have no debt, thanks to living at home for the last 4 years. They say that I'm being ungrateful and argumentative. I don't think it's fair to kick me out of a room I rent for nearly a month. They didn't even offer me the choice not to pay for the month I don't have any room. Not the idiot, but at 26, you don't ask to move out. You sign a lease and then tell them the date you're moving out, and make sure you already have important stuff, computer, laptop, passport, driving license, social security card, etc., safe, before you tell them, just on the off chance that they throw everything away while you're at work. If you're paying rent, you have a right to your room. Imagine if a roommate asked you to pay rent, but also give up your room. Or a landlord. An actual unrelated landlord wouldn't be able to force you to stay in a different unit or room than the one you rent for their guest. Consider this a sign and a blessing to move out. At 26, you're too old to have to put up with this kind of behavior from your family. And that, dear viewers, is how a chance discovery led to the unraveling of a long-held family secret. If you were captivated by this tale and want to hear more stories of family conflicts and unexpected revelations, be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Share your thoughts and similar experiences in the comments below. Have you ever faced a family drama that took you by surprise? Until next time, remember, understanding and communication are key to navigating the complexities of family relationships. Welcome back to our channel, where we delve into the most extraordinary tales of love, loss, and unexpected reunions. Today, we have a story that is sure to tug at your heartstrings and leave you speechless. Imagine discovering that the woman you left behind was carrying your child, and now, with a terminal diagnosis, you have one last chance to make things right. This is the incredible story of Alex titled, "I Left My Girlfriend, Only to Find Out She Had My Son, and Now I'm Dying." Join me as we explore Alex's emotional journey from despair to redemption and the unexpected twist that changes everything. Alex stared dejectedly out the window of his luxurious apartment. He achieved everything he dreamt of and even more, but he had no friends because there can be no friends in business. He was alone. His parents died almost 10 years ago. He was not married. At 40, he had no person to hug. The phone on the table rang. Yes. Mr. Wright, you have a deal at 3 o'clock. Can you come? Yes, I'll come. Of course, he will be on this deal. A week ago, after a painful treatment, when he recovered a little, the doctor called him and said, "Alex, unfortunately the treatment didn't work. You need to try another direction." How? And why did I suffer these 2 months then? Unfortunately, it happens. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 courses to figure out which one is the most effective. No, I don't want to participate in your experiments. He slammed the phone on the table and it shattered. A few days later, he put his business up for sale. He decided that he would spend the time he had left traveling in resorts and he would leave to die in some mountain village. He himself didn't know why in a mountain village. The doctor said 3 months, maybe a little more, unless a miracle happens. And a miracle can happen only in one case. If he agrees to a new treatment and it has not yet been fully studied, there is progress. This treatment helps people, but not all and not at all stages. He then asked the doctor, "What are the chances that it will help me?" "I'll tell you honestly, the chances are very small because, as I said, the treatment has not been fully tested." And why do I need it? To once again hope and then lose it? Not. Yesterday, he walked around the city on foot and was glad that he could still do it and was not lying on a hospital bed. He stopped at the church and some old woman immediately approached him. "Help me." He handed her some banknotes. Old woman looked at him in surprise. No one has ever given her that much money. When he was about to leave, old woman took him by the sleeve. When you do good deeds, dying is not so scary because many people are grateful to you. He left and the words of the old woman still sounded in his head. He decided that when he got home, he would pack all his warm clothes and take them to the homeless shelter. Once he was one of the sponsors who created the shelter. People who had something bad happen in their lives could be there. Not homeless people chose their own path, but those who needed help. Someone was deceived with an apartment. Someone ran away from her husband. Someone else had some other reason and this place was never empty. Alex looked at the time. More than 4 hours remained before the meeting, so he decided to lie down. He didn't sleep well tonight. He sat down on the couch and immediately fell asleep. He probably fell asleep because suddenly the events of the past about 10 years ago stood before his eyes. 10 years ago, he met a woman named Wendy. Soon he was ready to make her an offer of marriage. Wendy worked as a nurse and lived with her mother. In general, she was an ordinary woman, but she told him that she only wanted his money, but he laughed in her face. "What money?" Wendy is a holy woman, but it turned out that he was very wrong about this. On the day when he was going to propose to her, she asked him for a large sum of money. He then replied that he would think about it and left her. He left, never to return. She called him the next day only once. He didn't answer the phone and she didn't try to contact him again. Perhaps he remembered for so long only Wendy of all the women he had, and he had a lot of them. He loved her. Alex woke up an hour later. He felt good. If he didn't know that he was sick, he would have not believed anyone, and the only change in the body was that he often required rest. During the day, a man could sleep 3 or 4 times. In the evening, after Alex returned from the meeting, he began to pack his things. Mrs. Hardy peeked into the room. "Alex, I'm here." Mrs. Hardy, I told you not to come here again. I don't want you to starve to death. Alex smiled. The kind woman had been his housekeeper for more than 5 years. She immediately began to treat him with maternal care. She fought with him for a long time so that he would have breakfast in the morning. They even fought. Alex told her that he decides what to do, not her. But of course, Mrs. Hardy won, and he immediately began to eat porridge, scrambled eggs, and everything that was given to him in the morning. She was right. Alex felt better, and he was not tired, as if he had recharged since the morning. And what are you doing? I decided to take some things to the shelter. This is good, but I don't understand. Will you take all your things there, and what will you wear in winter? In winter, I won't need anything anymore. Mrs. Hardy pretended that she didn't hear his words, because she replied, "That's right, you buy yourself new clothes." She went into the room and began to help Alex pack his things. It took them an hour to do this. Then they had dinner for another hour, and Alex felt that he was dead tired. He decided to take things in the morning, and now he's gone to bed. In the morning, he was greeted at the shelter almost with hugs. "Mr. Wright, where have you been? We haven't seen you for a long time." "Mr. Heyman, I have a lot to do. By the way, you need to send someone to unload the car. I brought you things and food." "Of course, we will do it now. Come to my office, where we will drink tea." They sat, talked, and drank tea. There was a knock on the door. "Mr. Heyman, can I come in?" "Come on, Paul, we have guests." A young man entered the office. He worked in the shelter as a lawyer. He was paid a salary from sponsorship money, and he helped those who were in a difficult situation. He greeted Alex and turned to the director. "I came about the new girl. Seems like a real crime there." Alex raised an eyebrow in surprise, and the director hurried to explain. "Recently, a woman came to us. Good and positive, but her husband repeatedly beat her, and now she ran away from him, and he doesn't give her the child, and besides, he burned their documents." "What are the police doing?" "Nothing. He works for the police." "But this is wrong. This woman has nothing. Everything in the family is registered to the husband." He immediately sued for the deprivation of her parental rights, and he found false witnesses who testified that she was a bad mother. "Now, we are looking for anything that can help us, and she has no relatives. She has no one who could help her." Alex suddenly thought that he had a very large and beautiful apartment. Is this woman really good, and does she really need help? Yes, she once worked as a nurse, but then her husband ordered her to quit. It so happened that at first, he fenced her off from everything, and then he began to mock her. "Can I talk to her?" "I have an idea." "Of course. Paul, please invite Wendy to join us." Wendy was a nurse. What a coincidence. But there was no coincidence, because it was the same Wendy with whom he was in love. Alex sank into a chair. She has lost a lot of weight, and her eyes are completely red. Apparently, she cries a lot. "Hello, Mr. Heyman. Do you have any news? One person wants to talk to you." She turned around and froze. "Alex?" Alex turned to the surprised director. "Can you leave us? It turns out we know each other." Mr. Heyman was surprised by this fact, but he was also delighted. He felt genuinely sorry for this woman. She told him about her life, in which there was little good. Her mom died. Wendy couldn't find money for her treatment. At that time, Wendy was pregnant, but she refused to talk about the father of her child. She wanted to finish everything, but the same policeman saved her. He saved her from depression. True, he demanded in return that Wendy marry him. Her husband was 22 years older than her. Alex was silent for a long time, then said, "I have only one question for you. Why did you ask for money then?" Wendy looked up at him. "My mother was sick. I urgently needed money for her treatment. Is your mom recovered? Wendy shook her head as a tear rolled down her cheek. No, I didn't find the money. Alex suddenly realized what a bastard he was. Why didn't you explain to me why you needed the money? She shrugged. You ran away right away. Then I tried to call you, but that is already in the past. What did you want to talk about? I want to help you. I don't really want to accept your help, but I have to do it. Not for me, but for the sake of my son, who is also your son. He almost lost consciousness. What did you say? What you heard. A week after you went missing, I found out I was pregnant. Naturally, I didn't look for you to tell the good news. You would think that I want money from you. He was silent. Of course, she was absolutely right about everything. There's no excuse for him, because that is exactly what he would have thought. An hour later, everyone who could help arrived at the shelter. Alex called the best lawyer and also called an acquaintance who was indebted to him and at the same time was a friend of the chief of police. The thought that he had a son gave him strength. He also realized that his love for Wendy had not disappeared. He just convinced himself that love is no more. He left the shelter in the afternoon. Wendy saw him off. Alex, I heard that you have health problems. He looked at her cheerfully. Yes, I have problems, but now I know that I am not alone. I know to whom I will leave my apartment and money. Don't you have any chance? Tears streamed down the woman's cheeks again. How to say to you? The doctors offered me one experimental treatment, but there are also few chances. Did you refuse this treatment? Yes, I don't see the point in suffering. For what or who? I repeat that the chance is very small. Forget it. You have to do this for your son, for us. You are not alone. We really need you. He looked at her carefully, said nothing, and got into the car. And when he left the shelter, he took out his phone and called the doctor. This is Alex. I agreed to try. Now I have a meaning in this life. A year has passed. Wendy sat in Alex's luxurious apartment and talked to her son. Max, why are you so nervous? Mom, do you think Dad will agree to come with me tomorrow? I have such important competitions. Max, he is only being discharged from the hospital. We don't know how he feels yet. Mom, I understand. But Dad was very cheerful on the phone. Literally 2 months ago, they heard from the doctor what they had been waiting for so long. Everything worked out. Now a good rehabilitation and you can return to normal life. Alex was exhausted from the heavy treatments. He looked at the doctor in disbelief. Are you serious? There is nowhere more serious. Of course, you still have a long rehabilitation ahead of you. But I can already say now that we won. He didn't understand why his eyes were suddenly so hot. Yes, for the first time in his adult life, he cried. When he calmed down, he was able to call Wendy. We won. He listened with a smile as Wendy, Max, and Mrs. Hardy cheered at the other end of the line. This is his family and they are happy for him. Max saw his father first. Dad! The plane had landed 15 minutes ago and Max was jumping up and down in anticipation. He rushed to Alex who hugged him and then Wendy came up to him. She wrapped her arms around him with a sigh. Hi, Alex. Alex hugged the two of them and even closed his eyes at how good he felt. He is so happy now that words can't express it. He looked at Max's dad. I have a competition tomorrow. Will you come? Max. Wendy looked sternly at her son and he lowered his head guiltily and Alex smiled. Don't yell at the child. Son, of course I'll come and I will even scream and cheer for you. And now let's go home. I got very hungry. I'm so fed up with this hospital food. I want homemade food. Wendy laughed. Mrs. Hardy has been cooking in the kitchen since morning. She's going to fatten you up after the hospital and she won't even let us into the kitchen. And they went to the exit, hugging tightly. Thank you for watching this emotional roller coaster of a story. If you were moved by Alex's journey and the incredible twists of fate, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more heart-wrenching tales. What would you do if you found yourself in Alex's situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned for more stories that touch the heart and inspire us all. Until next time, take care and cherish every moment with your... Hello, lovely viewers, and welcome back to our storytelling session. Today's tale is one of shock, betrayal, and sweet, sweet revenge. Picture this: you come home early to surprise your beloved spouse, only to find them entangled with someone else in your own bed. It's the stuff of nightmares, isn't it? But what happens next is a plot twist you won't see coming. Join me as we delve into the story titled, I Came Home Early to Surprise My Wife and Found Her in Bed with Another Man. Here's how I got my revenge. What he then came home to was terrifying. He saw his wife in bed with her affair partner, but rather than confronting them, he recorded them for proof, then walked out and ghosted her. Now, she's history. Let's get into today's story to find out what happened. So, I went on a work trip for a week and told my partner of 3 years, ex, that I was coming home on Sunday, but I had actually booked a fly-in yesterday and take her on a surprise date for her birthday, which I otherwise would have missed. I messaged ex happy birthday yesterday morning and asked what she was doing for the day, to which she replied she would be having a wine and movies night with her friend, Y, who lives in our apartment block. I reiterated that I could not wait to be home on Sunday. She said she couldn't wait and that she loved me. It has been really hard to write and relive this, but when I got home, I parked out by the front of the building on the street, and when I walked through the code gate, I couldn't see lights on up by our balcony. I did see Y's lights on, so I assumed X would be at her place. I didn't even have to enter, as her place was on ground level, and I saw through her window she was on her couch watching TV alone. I figured maybe X was out, so I walked up our 3 flights of stairs, and as I approached the door, I could hear it, and my heart just sank. The sound of R&B music, moaning and knocking. The door wasn't even locked, and with the way it's positioned, opening the door gave a direct view of our bedroom. I just slightly opened the door and saw my girlfriend straddled on top of who I instantly recognized to be a guy from the gym we go to. I think what stood out to me more was that it looked like it was unprotected sex, as I could see everything. I quietly closed the door and my soul just felt like it floated out of me. I knew they never heard me or noticed the door. I sat on the step for a good 5 minutes to process. This has always been my worst nightmare, but to literally have it play out exactly how I dreaded, another man in our bed just gripped at the heart. I couldn't cry as it felt so surreal. Was this really happening? Was I dreaming? The continued sounds quickly brought me back to earth. I got up and walked out of the building and towards the front gate. Y had spotted me through the window and called out to me and waved, gesturing for me to come over. I do get along very well with her, and in the past she had told X how highly she thought of me as a friend too. She had also openly told X that she found me attractive and asked if I had single friends who were also my nationality, from New Zealand. There had always been chemistry between us the first time I met Y, but that always stayed buried in my mind. I put on a brave face and walked into her apartment. We hugged and she asked what I was doing home early. I told her I had dates mixed up and wasn't she supposed to be having birthday drinks with X? She seemed confused and told me that X said she was going out for drinks with some of our gym friends. Go figure. I instantly burst out in tears and cried for what felt like forever, and she got quite worried asking what was wrong, did something happen to me, etc. I struggled for words but blurted out that I had just walked in on the 2 of them in our bed. Her face turned so white and she just hugged me and started to cry too. She knew I was a joker, but I think she knew this was no joke. I just started talking out of frustration, saying that I didn't know what to do, that they could be up there all night, and that this was my nightmare. We had no issues in our relationship other than her lack of interest in sex once every 6 weeks. It's a wonder I lasted 3 years with her, and I had accepted that a long time ago. Y laughed through her tears and told me she had always been single and not had sex the entire time she knew me, and joked that maybe we could both use it. That actually made me laugh a bit too, and I hugged her, thanked her, and for a second forgot X was upstairs cheating on me. I asked her if I could stay there for the night as I had nowhere to go, and I slept on the couch. I am still here a day later. I watched the guy leave in the morning and watched in tears when he came back this evening. I'm supposed to be home tomorrow afternoon. I haven't texted X all day, but she hasn't texted me either. Truth be told, the only comfort I have now is with Y. How do I deal with X? Do I walk up there and interrupt? Do I call? Firstly, I want to thank everyone for their views, opinions, and advice. I'm still trying to keep up with reading the comments. I appreciate those saying I should have had a backbone or spine. To be honest, I'd be saying the same things to someone else. This is my first experience with infidelity, so it was easier to judge until it actually happened to me. Anywho, before I tell you what has happened today, I will answer a few questions. Me. I have my own business and run it end to end by myself. I travel maybe 3 times a year to meet with production facilities and do quality checks for my product. Physically, I am 6 feet 6 inches, 124 kilograms, and I play rugby and have done a lot of boxing, so I can definitely defend myself. However, I do not go around using that. I absolutely tower over that piece of crap guy in every way. I earn a very comfortable living, as does X, so a split will not financially cripple either of us. And we're not married. The tears have been shed. I realize this was a blessing in disguise, and I know what I need to do. Apartment. We split all the bills 50-50 and have 4 months and a week left on a year-long lease which has both our names on it. We had been actively looking for a home to buy. I guess I dodged a bullet there. Why? What a woman. Aside from her personality, she is absolutely gorgeous. How she is and always has been single, I will never know, and she has not been intimate with anyone in over 3 years, according to X. She has been on my side through it all without saying a cruel word about X. She understands it was a bad thing to do towards me and that it does not involve her. That being said, she has said once X inevitably owns up to it, she will likely stop being friends with her. She has not tried to come on to me like a rebound and has just been super supportive. That alone speaks volumes to her character. X works in a hospital and is very attractive. Nice woman, but can be quite self-centered. In hindsight, we were basically just friends. We have only ever had protected sex because she does not want to get pregnant or go on the pill, and it was once in a blue moon. I guess I just accepted it and got too comfortable in the relationship being what it was. I'm just trying to get my head around how she never even showed signs that she was cheating. I know I'm not perfect, but I have always been good to her, always cooked for her, and did a lot around the house. We went on dates regularly. I told her things about her to make her feel loved, and I always got brushed off after what I thought was a good night. I now question why. If she didn't want me, why did she stay for so long? My plan. I intended to call her this morning to say my flight would be leaving earlier and that could she pick me up at the airport earlier. With the airport being a 40-minute drive away, I would use this time to go up and pack all of my things and rush them to my car. Y said I could put some of it in her spare room. Once X noticed my things missing, she would try to call me, message me, etc., and I would simply respond with a photo of the 2 of them in bed. After reading comments, I decided the cruelest punishment for her would be to have no closure. I would explain to the property manager my circumstances and go and stay with a friend until I could find a new place. X could cover the rent. She could certainly afford it. I do have the option to stay with Y, but that is way too close to X and I do not want to do anything with Y that could ruin our friendship, even though I know her and I are inevitable. The outcome. I went up very early in the morning and very quietly opened the door. Fortunately, they were asleep on the bed, so I took a photo of them, but it was weird. I almost felt guilty about violating privacy when my entire relationship was violated. I did not feel sad anymore, just angry and betrayed. I noticed his shoes on the floor next to my various, much larger pairs. I decided to take a photo of those and use it first. I figured it would be a more subtle way that she would likely lie about until I hit her with the photo of them in bed. I went back down to Y's and waited around for another hour or so until I was certain X would be awake. I tried to call but got no answer, and twice again to no answer. I looked at Y and we both just knew what was happening. After about a half hour, she called me and sounded very much awake and like everything was very much normal. I tried to put on my normal voice and told her my flight was leaving 2 hours earlier than I thought. I asked if she could collect me at 1 p.m. She said yes and that she loved me, that she was at her parents' for breakfast and that they said hello. Lie. On that note, her parents love me and will be broken about this. I went and laid down for a few hours to run through what I would get from the apartment. Other than clothes and a few appliances, most of my stuff was already boxed as I knew that if we bought a house, I wanted an easy move. Around midday, I saw X go down to the car park and I gave it a few minutes after she left before I moved my car and went upstairs. It smelled like air freshener and I noticed new sheets and covers on the bed. All the dishes were done. She went to every length to cover up that anyone else had ever been there. It took me all but 10 minutes to gather all of my things. If I forgot anything, I probably didn't care about it. It did feel weird knowing it would be a goodbye to the place I called home, but I felt strong. X sent me a message asking where I was as she was at the arrivals area. I replied and said I was held up and that I would Uber home. Maybe an hour later, a bunch of missed calls and messages came in asking where all of my stuff was and if something had happened. My heart nearly beat out of my chest when I sent the photo of the shoes saying these aren't my size. She had the audacity to reply saying that they were her brother's from when he picked her up to go to mom and dad's. Did I not say she would pull something like that? I didn't even want to discuss it, but I knew she was cornered, so I sent the photo of them in bed and I left it at that. She did not even try to call. I was expecting a wave of calls or texts. In my eyes, that was me leaving her, and I know I could have called her out or caught them in the act and confronted them, but I wanted her to know I knew and that she would never be able to know how or explain herself. I will not tarnish her name as it is not in my nature and I do not want to ruin her life, but she can live with this forever, although I doubt she has a conscience. I have left Y's as I know X will be down to see her soon, and I met my friends nearby collecting today's rundown to relay to you all. If it were not for Y, this would have been a lot harder, but I know she will sever her friendship with X in the next day or two. I am doing well and looking ahead. This hurt at first, but I'm glad I found out now and not after we bought a home. I have sent an email to the property manager informing her of our sudden split and that she would be covering the rent until the lease ended and that she could keep the bond. I think the pain for X will be when Y and I begin our inevitable relationship. Good for you, OP, glad to hear that you didn't tolerate any of the crap your ex has put you through and have immediately moved on. You do not need to give her any kind of closure whatsoever. She needs to suffer the consequences for her actions and the pain she has caused you. If I were you, I would not get involved with Y right now. I feel like it is too early for you to do that. Instead, I would call your friends and family, tell them everything that happened, and ask if you can stay with them temporarily for the time being. If you're on a lease with her, then contact your landlord and tell them what happened so that you can get taken off. I wish you the best with your situation, OP. Thanks for taking the time to listen to today's story. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done so yet, and comment below on what your thoughts are on today's story. If there's a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Take care, everyone. If this story touched your heart, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with others who might need to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more unforgettable